Tonight, I have the great privilege of introducing an American hero and this year's keynote speaker, Shilo Harris. Shilo came from a family with deep roots in the military service. As the son of a Vietnam veteran, Shilo always knew he wanted to be a soldier. On September 11, 2001, his life changed forever. Shortly thereafter, he enlisted as a cavalry scout in the U.S. Army. Yeah, we got fans already. His first appointment was to Schweinfurt, Germany, with the 1st Infantry Division. On his second deployment with the 10th Mountain Division, he was assigned and worked near southern Baghdad. On February 19, 2007, Harris's armored vehicle was struck by an improvised explosive device, or IED. The explosion injured the driver and ended 3 fellow soldiers' lives. Shilo survived with severe third-degree burns on 35% of his body. The severity of his burns meant the loss of Shilo's ears, the tip of his nose, and 3 fingers. The crushing explosion fractured his left collarbone and C7 vertebrae, damaged his lungs, and scarred him with TBI, PTSD, NDE, and survivor's guilt. The devastating injuries required that Shilo remain in a medically induced coma for 48 days. After he spent nearly 3 years recovering, which included ongoing intensive physical therapy and surgeries at the burn unit of the Brock Army Medical Center, or the BMAC. While he was there at the BMAC, he was the first soldier to participate in cutting-edge regenerative stem cell research to regrow his fingers, and later received prosthetic ears. Shilo's recovery has involved more than 80 surgeries today and still has other surgeries throughout the remainder of his life, which at times has required his family to spend up to 6 hours a day in wound care. In 2010, he chose to medically retire from the Army. Shilo reflects on his time in the service that led him to his injuries. In Shilo's words, "Everything in life is a gift. Sometimes it may not be the gift you want, but you realize your challenges are a new beginning." Please welcome Shilo to the stage.
Wow, you're already clapping and cheering. Does that mean my job's half done? First of all, I have to say congratulations. And thank you so very much for allowing me to share this time with you. And I'm going to address an elephant in the room. I've met a few of these people up here, and everybody is so excited about tonight, and we're also a little nervous. I mean, this is the first ceremony since, what, 2019? Is that right? How does it feel to be the first? Yeah! Well, we want it to go perfect, not just for us, but for you. You've worked so hard to be here, and I'm so honored to share this time with you, especially knowing Trident's history of 22,000 plus military and veteran coming through this academy. Or this institution. So I'm absolutely humbled and honored to be here. Thank you so much for that. Now, as I'm speaking, I want to tell you a couple things before I get started. Some of the things that I say are funny. They're intended to be funny, so you can laugh. If you're the only one laughing, maybe you got a dark sense of humor, and that's okay too. We'll get along great. But some of the things that I say, too, are going to be hard to hear, but it's not meant to bring us down in any way. It's actually meant to strengthen us. And I'm hoping that when everybody walks out of here, you're going to feel this pride and this strength and be ready to go out there and face those challenges that life has to offer. Now, I grew up out in West Texas, around Odessa, Midland. Anybody familiar with that area? I figured there'd be a few. Well, I grew up out there around Odessa, Midland, and like I said, you know, for those of you that do know, and for those of you that don't, it gets extremely hot out there. It's actually great training if you're getting ready to deploy to Iraq or Afghanistan. But yeah, I grew up out there. I get invited to a lot of hometown events. One of the trips that I was going out there to West Texas, I noticed that I had traded in my combat boots for my cowboy boots. I had my big belt buckle on and felt good about it. But then I realized that I didn't have a cowboy hat. So I decided that I was going to stop at a Western wear store and complete the outfit. But also, as a burn survivor, I have a hard time regulating my body temperature. So I was thinking, if I'm going out here to this event, I want to make sure and have a hat, keep the sun off of me, help me regulate my temperature. So I go into the Western wear store and I tell the little girl, I don't know what size my head is nowadays. Let's start small and work our way up. Well, she did what I asked. She brought over a couple of hats. The first hat was like a child's hat, had an elastic band in it and just barely sat on the crown of my head. Well, clearly that one wasn't it, right? Well, she had another hat in her hand. And I think this is one of those moments where she was just trying to be a good salesperson and figured she could size me up. Well, she had that other hat in her hand, and I was pulling that one hat off, and she had that other hat, and she popped it down on my head, and when she did, both my ears popped off. Y'all probably didn't even notice since I'm up here. I actually brought one of my Spock ears for y'all tonight, too. And I wasn't wearing that when I was doing the hat fitting. Anyway, so no joke, she popped that hat down, both my ears popped off, they hit the floor and they're bouncing around because they're kind of rubbery, and immediately I was embarrassed on top of it, right? So I'm scrambling around trying to find my ears, and well, another part of the story is, I know I pulled my ears off for you guys, right? How many times has that happened? Well, anyway, I get my ears, and then I'm like, oh, wait a minute, I'm not in San Antonio. I'm out here in West Texas, San Antonio's used to seeing men and women like me coming back with injuries. Well, I'm about halfway over, and I look up, and that little girl was just like, I scared her to pieces, and I didn't mean to. Well, another part of the story is I hadn't had my ears very long, so I didn't know what to say. I didn't know what to do. I was immediately embarrassed. And anyway, the only thing I could think of was I'm putting myself back together, and I'm like, whew, I bet that happens a lot, huh? She was literally speechless. She didn't know what to say. I could see that our relationship was coming to an end. So I decided to let her down easy. I said, I'll just look around, and if I need your help, I'll give you a holler. Well, that girl was like, there's like a little dust trail behind her when she took off. I love starting with that story. For one, it gets everybody, laughing, loosened up. These scars are a testament of that life throws us challenges. They throw us curveballs. They throw us struggles. Now, these struggles, although they may hurt, they're really meant to strengthen us. They are meant to strengthen us. Now, I could have let these scars consume me. I could have let them do things that wouldn't allow me to be here with you tonight and do the things that I do. But I use them as tools now. I need you to remember that when you're going out there in life. And I know that, you're not a bunch of children. And in fact, some of you, this may be another career for you, or you're continuing your education. But the message is still the same. Life is full of challenges. Life is worth living. Life is worth living. You use those moments as fuel, as strength. I want you to remember this. It's important that you put yourself back together, you dust yourself off, and you keep moving forward, because life is always moving forward. There's no going backwards. You have to use those struggles and those challenges, those lessons. Learn those lessons, because it's either going to help you in the future or you're going to be able to help somebody else. I joined the military after 9/11/2001, as the introductor said. And thank you so very much for that introduction, by the way. I know I don't have to explain to this audience what that means. Yeah, I felt like it was my calling and my duty to step up and serve my nation. I joined the United States Army. I had 2 deployments. And honestly, after I got hurt, I felt bad that I didn't have more deployments, because I know that we have so many men and women that are still going back and forth over there. You know, one of my buddies told me he had 13 deployments. I was like, oh my God, that's unbelievable. But I had 2 deployments, and they were, in a way, I thought they were wonderful. You know, I grew up in a family of veterans. My dad and my grandfather both were veterans, so they ingrained that in me. But I got to see it full circle in a way. The first deployment was tactical. The second deployment was still tactical, but it was a little bit more humanitarian as well. Delivered medical supplies and medical teams into areas where people had never really experienced that. And I got to help rebuild schools. It was extremely, extremely rewarding. Unfortunately, on February 19th, I was injured by a roadside bomb that they estimated to be 700 pounds of explosives buried in the road. A true tragedy. And yes, I remember some of those details, but today is not the day to share all that. You get the idea. But sadly, I will share that America lost 3 of her children, and I lost 3 friends, because I'm always going to remember and honor my 3. It was extremely hard for me to go from the battlefield, and then all of a sudden, I'm in a hospital. It was hard to shift gears. I spent 48 days in a coma. And then even when I would come out of the coma, it wasn't a switch, like an on and off. You know, like one moment you're, asleep, and then, oh, hey, I'm awake. Hi, everybody. You know, I was so heavily medicated for that first year that everything seemed to be jumbled up. But I do remember a cornerstone. And this is another very good lesson for you, and I hope that y'all remember this. That cornerstone was the day that they walked into my hospital room, and they said, Sergeant Harris, today we're going to get you out of bed, and we want you to take 10 steps. I was like, 10 steps? I was like, man, I'm a combat soldier. I'm going to own this hospital. I was all arrogant about it, right? I do 25-mile ruck marches. Just getting out of bed was excruciating. Talk about an eye-opener. And I had 3 little tiny shuffles. And I was exhausted. I was wiped out. I laid back down in that bed, exhausted. And here's the sad part. When I laid back down in that bed, here's your lesson. I crippled myself. I crippled myself by saying negative things like, I can't, I won't, they can't make me do it. I'm not going to do it. I laid in that bed for 3 or 4 days, and, they would come in and try to get me up. Half-hearted into it, not really. And then finally, one day my dad came in, and he was standing at the foot of the bed. He was short stature, blonde-headed, real stocky, and he had these steel, cold blue eyes that literally could see your soul. And I remember him just standing at the foot of the bed, just staring at me. He kept staring, and this went on for a few seconds. And I finally said, okay, what is it? What do you got to say? Are you done, soldier? I was like, excuse me, sir? Are you done, soldier? No, sir, I am not. Then get up out of that bed and start doing the work. You have a legacy to leave. You have a family that needs you. You have people that rely on you. Quit wallowing in your self-pity. Dust yourself off and get out there and do the work, son. And I did. I turned those 3 little shuffles into 10, then 20, and then 30, and so on. Now, a lot of people don't believe me when I tell them this part. This is really true. And the reason is because, ICU, and then there's the step down. I was in the step down burn ward. And you're not supposed to really walk around by yourself. And I know that there's many medical people here. Like I said, not a lot of people know this or believe this, but you're not supposed to walk around by yourself because you're a fall hazard. And, and I did. I went from 180 pounds down to 120, 130, and like that. Well, I was the funny guy on the ward. I was always checking on people. I'd get up, go to the restroom, whatever. Well, all of a sudden, I found myself literally out in front of the elevator. And I'm like, oh. I'm looking around, and I couldn't even really use my hands or my arms. I was dragging my IV with my thumb. And anyway, I'm like, I know there's a Burger King down in the basement. I went from the battlefield to hospital food. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, I knew there was a Burger King because I got a tour of the hospital. I was thinking, I'm going down there and I'm going to get a Whopper. I know Burger King should be one of my sponsors, right? I swear I say that all the time. But anyway, I get down there and I'm in line. I am in line at Burger King, my hospital gown, dragging my IV, and nobody has said anything. And then all of a sudden I get caught. I hear, Sergeant Harris, what are you doing? And I'm like, oh, crap. Trying to hobble out of there, great speed of snail. I got caught, it took me back upstairs, and I continued on with my recovery. It took me like 3 years. I'm not going to say it was easy, it was hard. And so when I say dust yourself off, it may take time. Take your time to mourn. Take your time to overcome that moment and get your head right. But here's the thing, it may not be the same path that you were on. I was a soldier. My entire life, I wanted to be a soldier. And then I woke up in that hospital room and realized the challenge that I was faced with. I didn't have a plan B. I didn't even know what to do. Well, here's the thing, man. You don't really need a plan B, but it's good to have one. What you do need to do is keep moving forward, whatever the case is. Dust yourself off and get out there and start living your life. And then ask yourself that question, am I done? Am I really giving up? What is the legacy that you want to leave for your family, for your friends, for the people that care about you? I've been so extremely blessed in this recovery and in my life, really. I don't really have many complaints. But if I had given up, there's no telling what would have happened. But I do know this, and some of you may have heard this, but Bronnie Ware, she's an Australian nurse, and I'd tell you what kind of nurse she was, but I don't think I can pronounce it. But basically, she's there for the last 12 months of people's lives. You know, they know they're about done. You know, they're diseased, whatever the case is. And she got to notice a common theme behind their last wishes, you know, their last statements, their dying last wish. And the number one dying last wish was, I wish I'd had the courage to live a life true to myself, not the life others expected of me. Aspire, believe, achieve. That's your motto, right? You all of you are potentially our greatest generation. Because in the last 20 years, we all, as a community, as a society, as a world, have been faced with so many extreme challenges. Nothing like this before in history. Yet here you are, successful. You did it. You deserve this. And I am so honored and proud that I was here to share this moment with you. God bless you.
Well, Shilo, there's no words that I have other than to just express our gratitude to have you here and to thank you so much for your service. I'm sure you've inspired lots of graduates, but you know what? I know you inspire lots of regular people every single day. So thank you, and on behalf of Trident University, I want to give you this small token of our appreciation.